everybody. Welcome to the next edition, whatever, of the Liquid Weekly podcast. I'm Karl Meisterheim, joined by my lovely host, lovely might not be the right adjective, wonderful host, Taylor Page, Pages Media. And we're very excited today to be talking with Thomas from, oh my gosh, Thomas, I just blinked. Sorry.
Brickspace Labs.
Brickspace Labs.
Paper theme.
I was thinking paper. Like, it's not paper. It's not paper.
About to launch a brand new theme on the cusp.
Cusp, yeah.
Dum-bum-bum.
It's coming out soon, maybe.
Coming out soon, maybe. Okay. Well, Thomas, we love to start off our podcast by confessing that we just made you spend 10 minutes chasing down an echo on my side, potentially. So our dear listeners, we hope you don't hear it. We did the best we could. But what we really like to do is we start off by talking about something that's going on in our lives. And so I'm going to just jump in real quick with some personal updates, and we'll have Taylor and you share about just anything happening in your personal life or work you want to just touch on real quick. So as you may not know, because you're probably listening to this in December, we're coming hot off the heels of Halloween here at Liquid Weekly World Headquarters. And it was fun. I have a confession about Halloween. So I bought a bunch of candy from Kroger to have for Halloween trick-or-treats, right? And in past years, I know that if I open that candy before Halloween, it's just death because I will eat all the candy. And so I bought it. I put it in the basement like a month ago. I'm like, we are not touching this. This is for Halloween. And then I'm going to totally sell my wife out. Dear, if you're listening to this, I'm so sorry. So when the kids are in bed, that's when we kind of like to go to town on like a little treat yourself sort of action.
Busting out the good snacks time. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Busting out the good snacks time. Yep. Enough. Do you have any kids, Thomas?
No.
Okay. So
I have a dog.
A dog. Okay. So I don't know if you wait till your dog goes to sleep, but so one night
she would wake up as soon as any kind of snack is
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So one night we're hanging out and she's looking in the pantry and she doesn't have anything to snack on because we normally kind of keep our own stash. Hers is more like chocolate chips and brownie batter and stuff. Mine's more like candy and other things, salty snacks. So she's like, "Hey, do you mind if I open up the Halloween candy?" And I said, "I don't think we ought to. Like, we said we're not gonna do this." She's like, "Okay." But I thought, oh no, it's fine. You go ahead and open up the candy. It's just hard for me to resist temptation. She said, "How about I hide it?" Like, okay, you can hide it in the basement somewhere. So she did that, and I'm thinking, this woman thinks she can hide a bag of candy from me? I know this house like the back of my hand. I've done so much work on different things here. So I made it my mission to find where that candy was hidden just to see if I could do it. And so I waited till she was out of the house, and I went down there, and I'm looking everywhere. Like, our basement's just a mess because we did some construction, and so there's just piles of stuff. Everything's covered in dust. I'm looking through things. I can't find it. I'm like, oh, she did a really good job hiding this stuff. I was a little bit humbled. Well, fast forward a day later, and she went downstairs to get something from the pantry. And when she came up, I noticed she was chewing. So I thought she must have just gotten some candy while she was down there. So based on how long she was in the basement and what I heard and didn't hear, I sort of narrowed in roughly where it was. And sure enough, I went downstairs and I found it. She'd hid it in an old bread maker inside the machine.
Clever.
Yeah. So that was my Halloween. And we didn't even end up passing out candy because we went somewhere else. So.
Because you didn't have any candy left.
Yeah.
Well,
you got all that candy to eat.
Well, that's the thing. So I brought it upstairs. I did actually eat a lot of it before Halloween because she'd opened it and I found it. I said, "Look, do you want this? I have to get this out of the house because this is just going to keep happening." And so she kept what she wanted. And I put the big bag of like Almond Joys and that kind of stuff in the trunk of my car. Ostensibly, to like give away to friends.
Almond Joys, get out of here.
Yeah, I got to get out of here because this is a problem. So.
What is, Thomas, what's your number one Halloween treat? What's the candy of choice for Halloween?
We just got a box of these Kinder Surprise. They're not Kinder Surprises, but they're like a Kinder brand chocolate. I'm loving those.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they're called.
Pro tip. I would say I'm just the traditional Kit Kats, man. Just
Kit Kats
by the frickin' handful.
Yeah.
I'm like picking through my kid stuff and like throwing out the Almond Joys. Anything chewy, gummy. I hate that stuff. Like Starburst, all that stuff. Get out of here, man.
I'm not a big candy guy.
Yeah.
Candy or chocolate, I'll definitely go chocolate for sure.
Yep. Gotta go chocolate. You got to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm more of a Nestle Crunch kind of
number
guy.
one M&M. That'll be my last Halloween candy treat. What's the best M&M out there? out of all the M&Ms that are now available to us, because I've seen peanut butter and jelly M&Ms. I don't know if y'all
I
have
don't
seen
know of all
that,
the
but
M&Ms.
that's intense.
Peanut butter M&Ms.
Peanut butter. Bless you.
Thank you.
He might be allergic to peanuts. Sorry, Thomas.
Maybe.
Those peanut M&Ms are my number one favorite M&Ms every single time.
I like those like mini ones.
Oh, the minis? Yeah. They come in the little, bless you. They come in the little tube or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah. Those ones.
Those are
the
awesome.
Mini minis.
Nice.
We make pancakes with those sometimes.
Oh, those are good.
That would be good.
Yeah, you gotta wait to drop them though until after the pancake is on the griddle or whatever you're cooking on. Because I found that if you mix them during, all of the food coloring and everything comes off, and it looks gross. It does not look pleasant. It's like this weird like purple gray color because all the colors get mixed on the food coloring.
Oh, weird.
It's not pleasant. So you gotta wait until they're cooking before then. So, anyways, enough of my Halloween shenanigans. Karl, I interrupted you because you gotta ask the Halloween candy questions.
Okay, so that was the Halloween thing. The real quick, like, actual work thing I'll share is, so one of the things that I'm commonly asked to do is implement a feature where we have to, what we call force variant selection for users. So you come to like a shirt, we don't want the size and color pre-selected. We want to actually have them explicitly choose it, because what we often find is customers will put things in the cart not realizing that they added the wrong size, for example, because they didn't specifically choose it. I have come up with different solutions for this, for different themes over the years, and it's just the kind of thing that never feels like I do it quite right, or never feels like it's as elegant as I want it to be. And so this came up yet again because we had a merchant where they're using the focal theme, and we had done all the work, and the only way I could figure out how to make it work in focal is because of the way the theme code is written, and not wanting to really interject all of my junk into the theme code, try to keep it as isolated as possible, is to use a function they provide that selects a particular variant based on the ID. So what I have to do is like do all my shenanigans, like unset stuff on the form, and then I have to call the theme function to set the variant option as a way to force the product page to actually do all the correct updates, load the right product page, those kind of stuff. The problem there was that it was then like by default selecting the next one. It's complicated. I had to like select the second option because the first option I had specifically unselected, so I didn't want to select that. It was weird. And so as I worked on that, I kept thinking, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, on Focal, on their PDP, they're using Vue.js, aren't they? Is that Focal? Know. There's one of them. It's by 8 Themes, right?
I don't know who makes it, and I don't know anything, Taylor. Stop asking me questions.
Oh, well, there is a theme provider that does, and that's pretty hinky when you want to do stuff on the product page, when you're getting into anything really on the product page, when they're using something like Vue.js, because like you have to, it's with how it renders or whatever. I can't even remember now. It's like Mutation Observer, I think, is what I used the last time that I had to dig into something like that to do something. Because otherwise, like most themes, like Paper or those sorts of things, whatever, like we can manipulate with a little bit of JavaScript, or and we'll get into this a little bit. Like y'all even like talk about using Alpine.js, right? And so we'll dig into that a little bit. So that's fun. Karl, you're in some front end nerdery there.
Good.
That is
I'm
also
looking forward to
a frequent selection there that I have to deal with.
I kind of ran into the same thing yesterday too. Like,
good.
The variant selection. It's we kind of decided we're gonna be like redoing a lot of that on our themes too, because it gets messy and not as elegant as it once was.
Yeah, it's always hard messing with variants. It's one of the toughest things on product pages and stuff. So
especially there's variants, there's options, there's selling plans, and then there's different availabilities, and then there's
now we're worried about
stock levels
and we're worried about like all this other stuff. Like what the heck, man? So it's a lot of moving pieces.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'm excited to dig into that stuff. So I've done a little bit of that as well, Karl. Not as much this week. A lot of little product display stuff. One of the fun things that I've got to work with this week was we were doing some custom products. And for those of people that have maybe not come into that before, Shopify kind of has this nice little backdoor or whatever kind of type thing where you can hide products from the storefront search online, offline, right? So that there's a meta field value, just SEO.hidden, that you can throw in there, and it just pulls it from the sitemap, which is really nice because then people can't find it. So if you have some custom specific product you're trying to leverage or whatever, it's really nice because you can hide it and conditionally only show it where you want it to show up, right? You have to do some stuff with collection output if someone's smart enough to drop into like all collections or whatever to make sure it's hidden there, whatever kind of type thing. But real simple stuff or whatever in that regard. The problem that I've run into in a handful of times, which is super annoying though, is on these product recommendations apps, and then even in Shopify's own product recommendations, it does not honor the SEO hidden meta field value, which is super annoying to have to like get into that, especially because we're like, oh sweet, we like launched this custom product, and then I got an email that was like, hey, like someone added 5 of these to the cart, which is fine because like it's a good size order or whatever, but like we're not even ready to like present this yet or whatever, and it's not for these people. And I was digging into it, I was like, what the heck, where's this even, how are they even finding this? And it was because an app was like recommending it, and I was like, what in the world? So I'm digging through their docs, and they do not honor, they're not even like aware that there's a hidden SEO meta field. So I was like, dang it. So little stuff like that, right? So we're talking about like problems with themes, and then how themes and apps work together or whatever too. So it just kind of depends. I'm sure half of your customer support, Thomas, is from people where it's just like, oh no, this is an app that's actually doing that, it's not the theme.
Yeah, it's all the time.
Yeah,
and it is crazy, like the scale at like Shopify ecosystem, and like just the support or the software as a whole. Like it is so vast in terms of features and what you can do with it, and like I don't think you could ever find 2 Shopify stores that are the same. Like they're all different. Maybe this person has this theme, this person has this theme with this setup, or different apps. So you're never gonna see the same setup. So there's always these like little like intricacies with how like things like happen together.
Yeah,
like
all
the
these
apps.
Edge cases that you're like, I would have never thought of that, man. Like I've never seen this before. And you, even having done a lot of services, you've beforehand, again, we'll get into this. I feel like I keep digging too far into the episode already, but like you've been providing services, you've been customizing themes, you've been working with merchants or whatever before, and even then, like you're still running into stuff where it's just like, I've never seen or heard of this before, man. I don't know why we would have to account for this. Like, that happens all the time. It's not just plain cookie cutter anything ever.
Exactly. I would say it was probably like considerably more difficult building a theme for like the theme store versus like for a client, because like for a single store it's like, okay, like they're like the setup that they're using for their variants, like the products, like the photos that they're using, like you have like a specific like use case that you're building for, and it's like, okay, like this works. But then when you just let anyone use anything in any way they want, like things are gonna break.
Yeah, why can't I customize this product specifically for this thing? And you're just like, it's just nobody's asked for that before. I don't know, like that's not a common thing.
Thomas, anything you want to share from your week this week before we jump into the main topic?
My week this week. Let me see.
Where are you anyway? Are you
personally or professionally?
I am in Aurelia, which is just north of Toronto.
Oh, okay.
This week we did get snow.
So did we.
Nice. We got a dusting too. I mean, not snow like you probably got. Like we got a dusting. So
it was maybe more than a dusting. Like it was still there in the morning and like for most of the day almost. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of excited about that because I like snowboarding, so I'm looking forward to that. But other than that, I'm trying to think what happened this week. I try and just keep my head down and like do a bunch of coding. Like that's kind of what I like doing. So I think I did a bunch of that on Space this week. Working on launching a new theme for one of our clients, which we use Paper for as a starting point.
Nice.
That's about it.
Yeah, and space is the new theme coming out, right? So making some progress there. Got paper out, and so y'all are still. So that's interesting. So go ahead and book that for like a next question here, Karl, because I want to ask about services and themes. So that's awesome.
I'm wondering if you called it space because there's a lack of oxygen.
No.
Okay.
So that name originally came because I think like the direction with like the design, like we wanted to do something like a bit more minimal, like more stripped back, and space just came to mind because we're thinking like white space.
Yeah, embracing the space, right?
Yeah,
like,
clean.
Like, yeah, okay, nice.
So that's what we did.
It was a bad pun. Sorry, Tim. So let's jump into the main topic, which is learning all about what you are doing, who you are, the stuff you're working on. And I always like to start. I warned you about this. I'm a contextual, historical kind of guy, so I love to hear like how do you get to where you're at today. So can you give us a little bit, 30,000 foot view of the story of Thomas from where you began to how you got into what you and Brickspace are currently doing?
Okay. How far back do we go?
When did you start getting into Shopify? Let's start there.
Okay. So Shopify, maybe I'll start like a bit before that. So I started like computer programming or like coding throughout college. And I think that might have been like a few years before I got into Shopify. And I was doing like a lot of courses on Team Treehouse, like learning web basics, like websites, that kind of thing. And at the time, I kind of found out about Tumblr, and one of like the first like big projects I worked on was building a Tumblr theme, and like I did that as I need to learn how to build websites, so I built this Tumblr theme. It's actually called Paper as well, and that's like a
so Paper on the theme store is really Paper 2.0.
Yeah, it's named after the first Tumblr theme, so it's amazing. Like a nod to the starting point. But yeah, so started building Tumblr themes. So graduated school, got a internship that ended up turning into like a full-time job, and I was there maybe for a year. I don't remember. Let's say a year. That was at a car sharing startup, so I did a lot of like marketing, Facebook ads. I worked on their website there. I did a lot of stuff, and that was like really great to have like an experience to kind of like get like all kind of aspects of a business. After that, I started freelancing. That might have been like 2017, 2018.
Cool.
Started freelancing, and at that point, I think I might have like started looking to Shopify, but I was still doing like kind of anything. So someone wanted a website, I would help you build it. And
what were you using? Like WordPress or like Squarespace type stuff, or what were you primarily doing?
I think I was doing like static sites back then. Like it was just like simple stuff, and I don't think I did a lot of that. So I think I was doing like some branding work as well, like logos and stuff. Cool. But I didn't really like find like my path in terms of like, okay, like I do e-commerce websites until probably like a year later, discovered Shopify. And I think I got into StoreTasker around that time too. It might have been like 2019. And then started picking up freelance Shopify work that way. And that's how the ball started rolling. So found out about Shopify, and I was like, whoa, like there's like so many businesses on Shopify. And these are businesses that are making money and they need updates to their website. So it was kind of like that perfect mix of like it's this technology that people are using, like it's in demand and it's like fun to use and there's documentation and it's growing. So I was like, okay, let's go all in on this Shopify thing. And then I think at the time too, yes, with my girlfriend at the time, we or current girlfriend still actually, we launched our own Shopify store as well, and we did that for like maybe a year. And we were selling T-shirts with like maps on them, so you could like have like a outline of like your hometown.
Cool. Was it like
which
print
was-
on demand kind of type thing?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
We did print on demand, and then we ended up working with like a local supplier in Toronto, and
That's awesome.
they kind of did print on demand for us. So like we would send
Very
them our
cool.
orders like once a week, and then like we'd go pick them up, which was great because like it gave us like a lot more control and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But yeah, I think originally like we both started that because like we just wanted something to do, like start a business, like let's just figure this out. But after the year, I was like, I don't think either of us really care about like starting a clothing brand or selling T-shirts or any of that stuff. So we stopped that, but I kept doing freelance work throughout that whole time and was still doing it after that. And since then, it's just kind of been a natural progression. So do freelance work, slowly pick up more jobs. And then we brought on some freelancers. So I kind of expanded out of just being like myself. So taking on bigger projects. And then the theme store opened up for submissions, and then we started working on paper, and then now I'm here on this podcast.
That's awesome, man. Very, very cool.
I mean, T-shirts are cool. They're not coffee mug cool, Taylor, but they're still cool. I don't know if you know Taylor's.
It's I don't know about if cool doesn't sell, man. I sold one. It sounds like Thomas at least had people buying stuff.
Well, he didn't say that.
That was my my foray, Thomas. If you've missed that previously, we've talked about that before. I also with my wife, still wife at the time, opened up a Shopify site selling coffee mugs with funny sayings on them, and we made one sale the entire year. So
it's called Sips of Taylor.
That's how good I am at sales. So.
Nice.
Sips of Taylor, get out of here. So, all right. I'm gonna dig into a little bit because, like, dude, this is awesome. As far as the stuff that you're talking about with kind of this really cool progression, and I definitely want to talk about paper, but you know, do we want to talk about the stuff before paper? Because like you made this jump from freelance to agency, and so this is all services based. But then you made another jump after that, where we went from just services to now it's a product, right? We're talking about a product when we're talking about a Shopify thing. And so, like, as far as that natural progression goes, you know, and this didn't work out. And I don't think we talk about failed businesses or things that we tried and just found we didn't work. And it's not that it was a failure. It was like we learned from it, right? Or whatever. So what about that? It sounds like that happened around the same time, propelled you to like keep doubling down on services and then eventually move to the agency side of things where you built up Brickspace Labs.
So question, sorry, I might need that to get reworded. So question is, what propelled me to go from doing services alone to building agency?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay.
So start there about that jump, and then we'll talk about the next jump into paper.
You know, I mean, it just all happened naturally. Like, we just like picked up more work. I say we, I mean me. I picked up more work, and then it just got to a point where like I can't do this all. So
So instead of like turning away or referring work. You're just like, well, like let's keep it going. I'm gonna just bring in some extra people now, and then you built an agency.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and it was great because like I was able to like find like freelancers who are doing the same thing like with other companies, or they have their own gigs as well. So like they are like available and like they're doing Shopify full time. So like it just made sense. And I've never really been the kind of person to, at least at the time, say no to like a lot of projects. So
because saying no sucks, right? You're like, I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it a lot more now, but at the time, that was like the only thing I was doing. So I was like, okay, like let's keep this going. Like, let's see how far we can go. And also, like, I don't want to work 80 hours a week or 100 hours a week doing everything myself. So I'd rather have some help.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that was like part of the, maybe like the ultimate goal in like my mind is to like have a business that is like sustainable and look at the way that like I have freedom and like my time and like I don't have to do everything all the time. So
so you can go snowboarding, right?
Exactly. So bringing on freelancers, expanding was like, it was just had to happen.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think is key to that whole aspect, and I know it's something that Taylor and I have talked and thought about a lot in our own career development, is having that network of people that you could even pull from to begin doing that sort of thing with is key. What were some of the strategies that you had, either accidentally looking back or intentionally going forward, that allowed you to make those connections to find people you could work that closely with?
I think the Shopify ecosystem is like already like pretty community driven. So that's just something like I got lucky with, I think, and that I'm in the Shopify space. But I've never really had too much trouble finding people, and I think that's just like goes to show that there's a lot of developers and there's like a lot of people doing this in the Shopify space. As much as there's a lot, but there's also not. But there are people. And
there's a lot, but not enough, right? There's never like, this is not an oversaturated space by far.
Yeah,
but
exactly,
if you're in it, like you know a lot of people.
Yeah, naturally. Like it's like a small community, and I've never really had an issue like finding people. It's just like either through like different like Slack channels or groups. It's been really good to kind of like engage with the community that way.
Sure, but that's part of it too. Like you were being active in those Slack communities. I'm assuming you're active on Twitter. Like that work sort of puts you in a position to even have those contacts, or other folks don't necessarily do that.
So. That's true. Yeah, it definitely goes to show like just being active and like putting yourself out there like opens up opportunities.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
So you got to the point to where, you're just, you're taking on so much work that you can't do it yourself anymore. So you go ahead and scale up, you bring on some more people, you build up an agency, and then you decide the agency and myself are not busy. I have too much time to snowboard. I need to build a product. And so, or is it because, so contextually though, before this time, right? Theme store submissions are closed, right?
Yes.
They haven't been open for a while. All of a sudden, theme store submissions open up. You have a successful agency at this point, and you're over there like, we could build a theme. Like we do this all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what happened there? Was it that simple of a jump, or like what happened to reshift the focus to a product?
So, I guess there's like a few things going on. One, I've always wanted to make a Shopify theme. Like, as soon as I found out about Shopify and Shopify theme, I was like, let me make a theme. But at the time, it was closed for submissions, and that's something I wanted to do. Like when I was starting out in Shopify, I was like, let me just make a theme. Like I don't need to work with clients. Just start out on my own. I can do this. But that wasn't really an option, so I just couldn't do it. But as soon as that became an option, I was like, okay, let's do this. Mostly because being a service business is great because like you get paying customers, and sometimes it can feel like easier to maybe scale up.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that I didn't want to do that forever, and as like my entire business, and like I wanted
Sure.
a product where it becomes a little more I guess passive in like the day to day. So wanted to do it, and we just kind of got to work right away, and it's probably like under a year before like
Amazing.
started to get it published. I think maybe a bit more than a year.
Did you take part in the Shopify was running a program for the theme accelerator? Did you take part of that as well? And
no, because we had started before that, and
okay.
I think I
awesome.
I went through like a few of the steps of the accelerator program, but we were already like past
we're further.
that.
Yeah, we're into like phase 4 already, and y'all are still in phase 1.
I think when I signed up, they were like going through like, oh, like create your partner account, like review your designs, and we were like already like, okay, like we're like deep into the coding at that point. So
just open the submissions, man. Like we're ready to rock.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So did you when you used or when you built up Paper, what was your initial idea? Did you have ideas going into it as far as like these are the features that I've worked in a bunch of themes, like these are all lacking, we always end up building these for clients? Or did you more so kind of take a step back and start asking around, like with, hey, like what do we, maybe asking clients specifically, like what are you looking for in a theme? Or did you already kind of have that in place?
That was a ongoing thing. So I think there's like a kind of like a set of maybe features that like we knew that we wanted, like just from like our past experience. But Paper has really like evolved and like improved over like the past year, and like what we launched with in terms of like the features available are like double, triple now, and like our functionality. And a lot of that just like comes from like listening to the customers and like getting their feedback and input. But at the time of building it, we didn't do a lot of that like outreach in terms of getting feedback. It was mostly just like based on our like intuition. Like we built themes before for clients, like we know these are like features that are useful or like drive conversion. So we built that stuff and kind of got a solid base on like the basic like functionality for Shopify theme, like filtering, adding to cart, like cart drawers, like upsells, like all the kind of basic stuff like that, and then just iterated based on like feedback. Nice. Once we got out.
That's awesome. Karl, I'll let you ask one. I'm asking all the questions.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering here if we should dig into some of the user submitted questions.
Well, I was kind of touching a little bit on them, trying to like interweave throughout or whatever. But yeah, if we want to hit some listener based, you can ask a listener based question, and then I'll ask one of my questions because I always have tons of questions for these sorts of things because this is
I'd love to
my bread and butter.
To dig into some of the technical details a little bit here and hear more about what Thomas is doing under the hood, because that's obviously the exciting part, I think, for all of us. So one of the questions that came through, Thomas, is what does the free shipping goal look like in the back end? How did you go about implementing that free shipping cost?
Yeah, so we actually need to update that because right now I think it works based on the subtotal, so or maybe the total. So if you like, for example, you get to like $30 and then like you have a discount that applies, like let's say you have a $5 off orders over $30 and then your free shipping is $30, so then you're gonna reach it, but then your total is gonna knock you down So right now there's like some issues there, but in terms of like the setup on like how that works, I believe we have like a variable that um, it's like a global variable, and we update that with Alpine, but it's basically just stores the percent width or the percent that someone is towards that goal, and like that goal is set in the theme store or the theme editor, so someone can go in and type in like $100. If they're at $30, that variable is going to be set to 30%, and then that just like fires anytime there's like updates to the cart, so it recalculates that, and then the page updates based on that.
So you said in all of that, you mentioned the word Alpine, which I'm assuming is an allusion to Alpine.js. Would you like to speak to that for a moment? Like, how did you come upon deciding you needed a JavaScript framework in your theme? Why did you choose Alpine? What other ways is it playing into things?
Yes. So Alpine, we use it on a few projects before starting Paper, and what I really like about it is like you can do so much of like the basic kind of like UI or UX functionality, like opening an accordion or opening a drop down or closing a pop-up. Like all that kind of stuff is very easy to implement with just like attribute tags or HTML attributes. And that was like the main reason, like I was like, okay, like that is super seamless. Like I don't have to go in and write extra JavaScript just for opening a pop-up. It just there and it lives on the markup for that pop-up. So that was like, okay, I was like, this is really nice. And I realized that this is like such a useful, I guess, tool for customizing as well. Like if you want to go in as a developer, now you have all the Alpine features available and you can write that into your markup. So it's not like you have to go in and like do a bunch of extra stuff. It's just all right there.
Gotcha. I'm assuming you chose Alpine over something like Vue or even React just because of the size.
Yeah, that and like the simplicity as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alpine's great. It's really nice.
Yeah, I've used it on a few things too, and it certainly is nice to have. Taylor, check to ask your question now.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about some of the developer-y type stuff. So I want to, and maybe again this is maybe not technical enough, so Karl can bring it back with technical or whatever. But talking a little bit about Alpine, this is very related. You have created a toolkit for developers. It's open source, so it's a toolkit specifically for developers, other folks, or whatever who want to like customize paper even further. Which is really neat. Beforehand, a lot of what I've seen in really good documentation from themes is they've created a space where like maybe we've got custom events and stuff like that you can tie into or whatever. Like, hey, these are events for JavaScript events for developers and stuff like that. Sweet. Oh man, this is great. I don't have to build in my own events or whatever. But you kind of like, I feel like this is a step further and like, here's an open source toolkit. Like this is the best way to go about customizing paper. And it's just out there for folks to do that. So I don't know if you can maybe talk a little bit about that. So a little bit of that is kind of helping explain, obviously, the libraries in play, right? So Alpine, Tailwind, and stuff like that too. So like this like utility first kind of type mindset or whatever when we're talking about customizing the themes. I don't know if you want to talk about maybe the idea and how that progressed with building that up, or was it because you were using stuff like Alpine and you're like, hey, these are the recommended tools. So like we need to create some kind of documentation for developers here. Or maybe just from your own experience of why isn't anybody doing this?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing was like from having this experience working with other teams, like it, like I've always like known like how much of a struggle it can be working on like other themes, like documentation or just not having access to like source files like that. So I just figured, why not? Like people can use this. Like we have this. This is what we're using to build the theme.
Yeah.
Why not let other people use it?
Well, I just thought it was cool because it was one of those things where when I saw it for the first time, I was like, "Holy crap! Why isn't everybody doing this? Like, why aren't all theme devs?" It's one of those things where you see it, it's like this just makes sense. Like, how are you the first to have like actually like executed on this? Because we've got all these other theme developers, right, that are in here, but you're just like, "Oh yeah, why aren't you doing this? This is awesome."
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's like a point about like maybe having like extra, like now I have to maintain two things.
Yeah, that's a good thought. The
and like it could be extra work, and like which is true, but I mean, I mean, I don't know why more theme developers aren't doing it. And I think a big part of like our motivation was like maybe this will entice more people to use the theme, and like us being like new theme partners, like that's kind of what we're looking for, people to try our theme. We're like a new name in the theme partners business, so we definitely want to like make our product as appealing as possible, so that was like part of it as well. But like I also like we're using this anyways, like every day, like this is what we're using to build the theme. Why not just put it out there? And the way we've set it up is like the toolkit is basically useless unless you purchase the theme.
Right.
So I think I was originally a bit like worried about like, okay, like if someone could just like take this and like build their own theme, and like we're supposed to be charging money for this software, but they're kind of it's kind of useless.
Right.
Because like the big thing is like that it just plugs right into Paper and works seamlessly. Otherwise, you could use it on other themes, but you'd have to like rebuild your theme, or like at least
you're gonna have to do a significant amount of work to kind of like
I mean, if you're starting from scratch building like a custom Tailwind Alpine theme, you could use it and that would be great. But if you want a theme that works out of the box, you need to purchase Paper to use a toolkit.
That's awesome. Yeah, it just makes sense.
Yeah, I know. And like
other theme devs, take a play out Thomas's page book here. All themes should be doing this.
I mean, in general, I like the really frustrating part, like as like an agency and like working with themes, is like when you have when you just grab a theme off the shelf and maybe the customer picked it or the client picked it, and like they started setting it up, and then they come to you and it's like, oh, like I have no idea how this is built, no idea like what kind of approaches they're using or methodologies, and then there's like a lot of like time spent just learning. Whereas like if you have a theme like Paper where it's like, okay, like this is using Tailwind, so like I know the CSS approach, like this is going to be Tailwind, versus if it's just using like a in-house CSS, which is great, and there's like pros to that as well, but like I think having something like Tailwind is like great for making the theme more developer friendly, because it just standardizes that whole styling thing. All the CSS is just, okay, we're doing Tailwind. And then Alpine is like kind of that same approach, or at least attempting to do that as well. And then the toolkit comes in and kind of really polishes it off.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Got it all there together. Yeah. So there's two threads I want to pursue. Okay, the first one I'll pursue really quick. So you touched on it, and it was on the back of my mind, but one of the things that always scares me about theme development, especially the theme store, is the customer support aspect of it.
Yeah.
So how have you guys handle that? Do you have a strategy around it, or are you just hoping it doesn't become a problem?
The strategy is just reply to the emails.
Yeah. Well, we had lots of people submit. To give you context, there were a lot of listeners submitting questions that were concerned about support, right?
And that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if you're getting a lot of support, you're probably getting a lot of sales too. So it's kind of a trade-off. I do know that like it can become like probably a bit time consuming. Like we have someone on our team who's doing support part-time.
Okay.
But I think that's the big thing, at least that I get, Carl. I don't know if you saw that too from a lot of the comments and stuff that people were submitting and stuff, was this idea of, and I think what people are really asking, as a solo dev, would you recommend being a solo dev and submitting a theme on the theme store and providing support, or you're going to need to either build a team or bring in some other people to help out with those other aspects of all
that? You could do it yourself.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you get to the point where you can't do it yourself, then you will know when you get to that. But like, I think if you're launching in like now the theme store, I think like the Shopify docs, like they're pretty like clear to say like, support is like a full-time job. Like you're gonna need to like take care of this, but it's not really that case for us, just because like I don't think we're getting like huge thousands and thousands of people using our themes every day. Sure. So
maybe they're comparing that to like established themes that have been there before they reopened the submission process, right? Okay.
I could definitely see it becoming more and more, but it hasn't been a huge issue for us. It's something that I could probably do on my own, but like I don't want to. I want to just keep doing other things. Time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give somebody else
exactly.
a job.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, support. We could probably be doing a better job at it too, but it's always one of those things that you can slowly improve on.
Sure.
Well, and support's huge, right? Like between theme devs and app devs alike. I see a lot of people talking about how a lot of reviews are won with support. So it's definitely not something you can sleep on either, right? Like that's key.
Definitely. And the one thing with like themes is like I feel like a lot of merchants will like contact like their theme developer or theme support for almost anything Shopify related. Like so if they have an issue with their app,
I can't get more than 100 variants. Why won't this theme let me do that?
Yeah.
I don't.
And
here's the docs.
that is frustrating too sometimes, because it's like, okay, that's something that like Shopify expects us to take care of.
Sure.
But then it's like, this is a Shopify issue, or this isn't even a Shopify issue. It's an app issue. And but seemingly merchants keep coming back to the theme developers, which does say something about how much of a critical role that themes play in a merchant's business. That it, for a lot of them, it feels like it might be like the core of their online store, and like setting up their apps, it all works into the theme. Like the features, it doesn't work with my theme. Like, it's an important part.
And is that part of the reason why when you chose, to focus on the product route or whatever, the theme route, like why not an app? Why'd you go with a theme? Because the process is pretty rigorous for a theme, right? I don't know if you can talk about the theme submission process too a little bit. Because from my perspective, like it's steep, man. Like all the bases that you have to cover.
Definitely. So we actually did go the app route before releasing Paver. I don't know if you've heard, but we had a app called Easy Pop, and that was pre-Paver.
Yes. Okay, I remember that.
And the app thing is, it's a bit more difficult in the sense where, like, okay, you need to find like a gap in the market, or you need to have like a solid marketing plan. You can't just expect to be on the App Store and get installs.
Just because of the sheer number of apps that are on the App Store.
Yeah. And on top of that, I myself am just like way more comfortable building themes. Like, that's what I've been doing. So the theme was like, I know this. I know I can do a good theme. Let's go that route.
You did the app thing. So I'm really interested to hear about, like, after they reopen theme submissions, what that looks like. So, you know, even if you can compare the two, I'm assuming that the theme submission process was way more rigorous than an app submission. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what the theme submission process looked like. Maybe you submitted paper, you got feedback, you know, and you're trying, like I said, there's a lot of bases that you have to cover with a theme, right? And so what that looks like.
Yeah, so we had originally submitted, I think there was probably like 4 months of, maybe like 3 to 4 months of like review for paper and that was like back and forth, like changing things. And I think a lot of that was, maybe it's our first theme, so like, okay, we didn't know on what level the requirements are to be executed at.
Well, first theme, and then the first time the theme submissions were reopened. Y'all were one of the first to be in after Theme Store was reopened, right?
Maybe not the first, but
yeah. So you were top 3. I feel like I don't feel like there were too many people that sneaked in between the opening and y'all. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But the submission process was, it was tedious. And I think a lot of that was just because, there was like, I guess, big time breaks between each submission. So like, if we submit something to Shopify, like we might have to wait X number of days to get feedback, and then that feedback might just be one thing, and then we fix that one thing, and then we submit it, and then they give us another thing.
Find something else,
which was a bit frustrating to do things that way, but
100%.
I mean, we got it done.
But
I do know
3-4 months is what you said, right? Like that was like that back and forth fixing stuff, you know, like updating stuff that you didn't have to update before in the last round. So 3-4 months.
Was it helpful? Like, were they finding quality things with the theme? Yeah, that your theme is better now because of the feedback? Or is that just jumping through hoops?
In some ways, yes, because I think we did submit the theme a bit early, and like we were still like polishing things off anyways. I was like, like it's probably good enough to submit. I'll submit it. But truthfully, we probably should have waited like at least a bit longer. And I think they were helpful to like catch like some issues, but I think a lot of it was like very like minute like quality things that might not have made a big impact. So and I think, for example, like we had gotten a lot of feedback about like simplifying our settings and like making things easy for merchants. And like I think one of those things was like having one setting for controlling your borders instead of like having that for every section. And then I think like the month after they said that to us, Dawn gets updated, and then every section on Dawn you can change the border and colors. So I'm like, guys, why are you saying this?
And that's the funny thing too, because as a dev, like that's one of those things where like that's one of the first things you get asked. Like, we need to be able to change the color in these individual sections, and we need to be able to change this. And it's just like, so I'm just going to build it in because I get asked for this all the time. they're like, no, don't do that. It's too confusing. It's too much. You're like, okay.
Yeah, and I'm hoping now that the theme store review process is maybe a bit different because like that is now like maybe more standard like as it's in Dawn or other themes. But at the time, like I had built some of that into the theme and then we took it out and then to get approved, and then later on we just added it back.
So I was gonna ask, can you just like once it's approved, like just here's an updated version now, and like we just baked it back in. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. Which was a bit frustrating. There were some features that they just said no to. Like we had built a wish list feature for paper, which I was actually quite excited about,
and they said no to that.
To that.
Was there any like reasoning? I don't know if you can talk about that stuff at all, or I mean, it's your theme, but I don't know. I don't know the rules on that stuff.
I think so.
So what were you? Was it because what were you using in order to bake that back in? Were you using like meta fields? Like what were you using for storage?
So that was all browser storage. So or session storage. So the way that happened was like someone would add something to their wish list, and then it would just save to their browser.
Right.
But there's no way for that feature to save it to their account or like email it to yourself. So because of that, Shopify felt like it was incomplete, which I mean, I do agree. Like those are kind of features that you'd expect out of a wish list, but out of the thousands and thousands of Shopify merchants, I would imagine that there'd be some who would be okay with a browser-based wish list that doesn't save to your account. And I mean, not everyone is on that scale where they need like to be paying for apps for everything. So I thought it would be great, but it was a no-go.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
So circling back there just for a second. So when you submit a theme to the App Store or to the Theme Store, it's a one-time process you go through. After that, for every update, you have to resubmit, or are you just free to update willy-nilly?
You resubmit, and they don't do a full.
Let's say it's not like the full audit, right, or whatever.
No, not at all. I think they'll like just kind of review the changes. And I actually don't know because I mean no one's really told me, but I'm guessing they don't do a full audit because it kind of gets approved like within a week.
Sure. Well, they know like the bones are there, right? Like they've done the heavy, intensive review, and so they're checking diffs, right?
So what if there's like a bug, right? Because I'm assuming you submit to the theme store, that's being hosted now on their CDN, right? So you don't have the ability to directly update the code. So if you find a big bug, whatever, then you have to resubmit it. They have to re-review it. So it could be weeks. Whereas if you were selling the themes directly, you'd be able to put it out within the hour, kind of a thing.
There is a way that you can like flag their team if it's an urgent update. For things like that, they probably would approve it like within a day or two, if not sooner. And I know they'd probably have higher priority for themes that have more traffic.
Sure.
But I've never really seen it go too long for anything that was like critical. If there's like an update that like we need to push, they'll usually get to it pretty fast.
And are you free to continue to host it and sell it yourself on your own site, or you're only able to make it available on the theme store?
It's only
exclusive.
Right? Yeah,
exclusive on the theme store. Which is, I mean
that's
great because
that's
we
quality
have that
signal,
Yeah, and we have that exposure to the theme store, which gets us that organic traffic. I'm not complaining.
And you can you can point it back. You can create your own landing pages or whatever kind of type thing, point people back to the theme store.
Exactly.
Because Brickspace Labs, even like your own site, you built it out on paper, and like it points back to your listing too for that as well.
Exactly.
I'm just thinking of even like the Mac App Store, for example. You can submit apps to Apple directly to sell, and they take a cut, and you get the exposure, blah blah blah. But you can also host it yourself and sell it yourself. So you kind of get the best of both worlds in that scenario. So I was just curious if it's the same for themes, but apparently not.
Yeah, I had thought about doing, and maybe it's something I'm still thinking about, doing like a developer only theme and selling that like through our website, where it'd be like stripped back version of paper, and it was like bare bones.
Because you could create an alternative theme that's not listed on the theme store.
Yeah,
and do that, because there's some that do that now already, where they've got some themes on the theme store, but then they sell some other themes off the theme store kind of type thing. So that's been around for a minute. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's something I'm thinking about, but I don't know. I mean, right now, trying to get the second theme out, and then we'll see. But it's definitely still a possibility.
So we've been yammering on here for nigh on an hour, and we got a couple more sections to get through. But Thomas, before we sort of redirect, is there anything else you wanted to make sure you wanted to share or touch on?
No, I mean, I think you guys are doing a good job. So whatever you ask me.
That was after the first 10 minutes. Well, I say we hinted at, is there anything cool you can share about? Because probably even by the time this podcast is coming out, Space, your new theme, probably is not going to be quite ready, but we're going to be on the edge of it getting released or whatever. But is there something exciting that you can hint about, like things that you learned from paper that you're building into Space or whatever? Something, some little tidbit that you can give us about Space or whatever.
Yeah. So in terms of functionality, like it's very similar to paper. It's going to have some new features, but the big thing is just like it's a new design. So like most of the sections are new, and then like the way we did it was like we kind of took paper and then we just like added more features so you can tweak the design even more, which is great. So even like on like a global level, like you can do things on Space, like setting like the heading scale ratio. So like if you want like your H1, H2, H3 to be like 10% bigger each time, you can set that ratio.
Nice.
Or you can set it to something smaller, so all your headings are like the same size. So I think what we like in terms of like that approach, like what we did was like kind of take how you normally go in and like build out like a visual brand. All those elements that kind of go into that, we tried to put into like the settings. So like setting like the border radius or like background colors and like different typography, like all those things can kind of be tweaked. So it's pretty exciting to see that come together in a way like you can build so many different things with it now in like different directions.
That's awesome, man. I'm excited. Cool. Maybe we'll get a sneak peek too if if we can get in your good graces enough before it comes out. That'd be really cool. I'm excited to see it and see it on the store. See it on the web.
Could we do that now or?
You're gonna?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can share your screen if you want to.
Let me see.
Also, while you get that set up, I have a pre-launch marketing idea for you. So the Kármán line, which is the internationally recognized boundary for space, is only 62 miles above the surface of the Earth, or 100 kilometers for those of you in Canada and the rest of the world, really. So what do you think about this? You can make T-shirts, since you know the T-shirt business, and it could say, "Space, it's closer than you think."
Ooh, I like that.
Leading up to the launch, yeah, that'd be cool.
Look at that.
Because 62 miles, I mean, you wouldn't think you could drive to space in an hour.
I was worried there was going to be another like dad joke in here about like.
Sometimes I actually
posting
have
on oxygen and
good ideas. That was a good one, I think.
Carl, your ideas are great. I didn't say that. I said it was your jokes that were kind of bad.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Okay, sharing my screen.
Okay, let's see it, man. Let's do it.
Good luck. Does it work? Oh, it does.
Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
So this is one of our demo themes, and this is for a furniture store, and
awesome.
this is actually one of our friends who does all this work. So really great stuff,
Very
Oh, wow.
cool.
and we've got all these like big impactful images,
Hmm.
but like right off the bat, like this is like super minimal.
Clean. Yes.
Yeah, very clean, but like of course like all this stuff can be tweaked. So like you can go into the banner, like you can add like buttons, like you can add like a newsletter to the banner or like countdown, like
Look at that.
headings, like all this kind of stuff. Um well
And even with all that
also
stuff, it still looks so clean, like that you just dumped in there. Like that's just nice.
yeah, the other cool thing is the header overlap. So like right now how the banner is like underneath the header, like you
Hmm.
can turn that off and on.
Nice.
Which I do think this might be an older version that has some bugs on it, but you can set like different colors. So if you're like scrolling, um, how does this work? Um, get the header sticky, yeah. So
Look at that. Yeah, there you go.
and then you can set like let's go something like that. Okay,
Ooh.
but we have two different logos, and this would have to be
Yeah,
the
the default, the backfall for the overlay.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
both a light color, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, you get the concept where you can
Yeah.
like change the whole look of that. Um,
This is awesome, man. This looks good.
yeah, we've got the cart here. Um, this scrolling text. Oh, this is another cool thing. The pop up in the bottom here
Hmm.
is this tooltip, and you can customize this quite a bit. So right now I have a
Very
newsletter
cool.
in here, but you can add, you know, video, buttons. You can add a contact form. So if
Nice.
you wanted this to just be like contact us, you could do that, or the save 10%. Like that's a really flexible section.
Stuff people are reaching for an app right now that you're just building into the theme. That's
Yeah.
That's
awesome, man.
cool.
And of course, like there's still a need for apps that if you're doing like a
Yeah,
live
absolutely.
chat or something like that. But
Hmm.
I mean, if you're just getting started and you just want send us a message,
Yep.
you don't need an app. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, let's
Oh,
see.
are you doing some fun stuff on the collection there? Was that the collection view that you're interjecting some custom that we will
This
work with you
page.
one-on-one? The contact us there?
Oh yes, that's we
That's
have that
cool, man.
on paper as well. But
Oh,
yeah,
I've missed that on paper.
you can
That's solid,
set
dude.
different blocks here. You can change the color. You can set like the position of it. So if you want this to appear like later on in the
Nice.
grid, you can do that. And I think we have like this text block or a newsletter block. So the newsletter would be like just
Look at
that,
that. Very
which
cool.
is yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I can try and show you the menu too. If I can, I think we just have like the one link there, but can I do that? Okay, yeah. So our menu is and this one only has two links too, but
Yeah.
if you had nested items there, there'd be another thing that would slide out if you had
Okay.
more links.
Nice. Okay.
Um, and then there's also, I think in here, yes, let me go. I can add, I'll add a featured image. Um, So you can set like call out images. So if
that.
you want like something to appear when you're hovering over the furniture link, you could do something like that.
That's cool.
So if you're like highlighting like a new collection, you can have like big imagery right there.
Very clean too. Like it.
And then you got the search, which is just
nice.
Yeah.
That's cool how that kicks out with the products off to the side like that, and you've got the drop down for like if you want. That's nice. I really like the layout for that.
Thank you. The product pages are like very flexible. So like this gallery, for example, you can set it to like on the top or below, or you can go like to the right or left. And then like each of these blocks you can set to be on the left or right column. And then you can like set this width as well. Nice. So you can do something like that. And then like maybe I'll put these titles to the right side, these buttons on the right side. So like nice. It's really flexible to like do a lot of different layouts.
Yeah.
But yeah.
This looks awesome, man. I'll put a ton of work into this.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been. I think originally we thought like, you know what, we're just gonna take paper and then like reskin it and make it look different. But then we kept seeing all these things we wanted to do, so it turned out to be a bit bigger of a project.
That's awesome though.
Well, now we can say that we've been to space. Thank you, Thomas.
Oh yeah.
There's the other marketing line. There's the
other marketing line, yeah. Awesome.
Carl, you're on fire today, buddy.
Thank you. Speaking of on fire, Taylor, you want to kick us off with the community stuff?
Yeah, just real quick, I'm going to highlight a couple of things because I know we're running a little bit on the long here, so I don't want to get too heavy into it. I don't know if y'all have run into this with merchants before, issues. I didn't know too much about this, but there's this whole deal with DMCA takedowns. So this instance, there's this whole process in play where, you know, if somebody like copies a store or something like that or whatever, you can basically say like, hey, this is a copy. I don't even remember what DMCA. Someone else probably knows what this stands for. I forgot to look it up before we started talking. But basically, there's a way that you can kind of like a competitor can hack the process and initiate so many DMCA takedowns where they end up taking out like a brand that's been legitimate because the process was pretty automated before, I guess. So the store would go down and people would lose sales. If it happened enough times, like their account could essentially get banned. And so basically this got enough noise or whatever, finally got Toby's attention. Toby responded to it on Twitter. I'm going to link up to a couple of posts and threads and stuff like that or whatever. And so Shopify is changing a little bit of the process, going about also like pursuing legal action for people that are doing this maliciously. So just something that was interesting because it really started to pick up steam. Another really nice thing about the Shopify community, we talked about that a little bit. It is still a community. And so it's still where you can get like, you know, the attention of some of the folks up in leadership or whatever, where they're like, hey, this is clearly not working the way it's supposed to. And so we need to do something about this.
Yeah. It is good though, that there's so many people who are like vocal about like things in like the Shopify space.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like even I'm like that sometimes too, but I'd imagine it only comes from like a place of love. People just want Shopify to do good, and like the software and the product and the platform for everyone involved. So
we're talking about people's livelihood in a lot of business, right? They've built up a brand or a business, and nobody's talking about like, I need to go to WooCommerce or I need to go to BigCommerce, whatever. Like we're talking about like, hey, this process is broken. I love everything else about Shopify. Like this needs to be fixed, you know? And so I'm really glad to see that is happening. A couple other things that I'll throw out there because I feel like this could be a whole discussion on verbiage between native and headless Shopify. So there was just like kind of like this back and forth or discussion. I saw a lot about it online where, you know, when we're talking about headless development, obviously we're talking about Shopify as the back end and maybe we've got a front end built out in Next.js, Hydrogen or something like that, Remix and all these other things or whatever. But there's obviously a space in the native space in Shopify, right, where we have Shopify themes, they're built on a premium theme store theme like Paper or something like that, but then they're customized. And so it's not just an off-the-shelf kind of type thing. So I thought it would be interesting to have a little bit more of a discussion on that, but obviously we're a little bit long here. And then also, we talked a little bit about reviews earlier, just some information about how apps devs, theme devs should be responding to reviews, negative reviews in particular on Shopify. I am still very pro. You need to respond, acknowledge, point out like what has been done or whatever kind of type thing. Other people are like, just leave them alone. Honestly, I think the negative reviews are more telling than positive reviews in many instances, because if I can read a negative review and say that's stupid, that does more than 10 positive reviews in my book.
Yeah.
So
I think we've had one negative review, and I did reply to it, and we did fix. I don't remember what it was, but we did fix the thing, and that negative review was removed. So, thanks to that person.
Nice.
And
that's where it's
I think,
actually helpful and legitimate, not like fix
Yeah,
this,
and
or I'm
it's like,
leaving you a 1-star review.
well, they left us the star.
Right, they just left it. They just fired from the hip.
But then they're like, oh, okay, thanks for fixing that.
We might have jumped the gun a little bit.
Yeah,
but you responded, right? Like, in addition to like just the initial 1-star review, you responded to it. You got a good resolution, and the review's gone. So there you go.
Yeah, which I will say, sometimes it does feel a little one-sided if there's merchants who are kind of like threatening that, like,
right.
I'm gonna leave a bad review, or they just leave the bad review, and like, because some of them know how much that matters.
Yes.
And they use that to their advantage, which,
well, that's the tough
feels
part when we're all in
eggy.
e-commerce, right? As a DTC, like, they're also heavily relying on reviews, and so they know like how terrible position they're trying to put somebody in. So that stuff, I do wish there was some accountability there. But
maybe message support first, and we can figure it out. Like, we can fix whatever's going on.
Yeah, I'll link up the thread, but in the show notes here. But basically, it was, and it's nice that Shopify shows this now. It was an example of someone 1 minute on the app, and they left this review. Like, and you're like, what? How could you possibly do that? So,
it's like installed 10 minutes ago, left one. Yeah,
not cool. But yeah, I won't get too heavy into that. That's my in the community. So we'll drop some show notes in there. People want to like review that, look at it. I think there's so much good stuff in there for discussion, but I'm glad that we got to talk so much about Paper and even see a little bit of space before then.
Awesome. Well, real quick, we're going to go picks of the week.
Yeah. Thomas, you got one, or do you want me to? I can start, or Karl can start. I've been talking a lot.
What is a pick of the week?
Oh, Thomas, we talked about this. No, it's just anything cool that you've come across this week that's on your mind. It could be a digital product. It could be a service. It could be something in real life that you found. I'll share mine just to give you a second. So you got yours?
You can go last, Thomas. You can prep yours.
I can say something.
Okay, go for it, man.
So, I don't know if this counts, but, we started doing the 4-day work week thing. And
what days off? Over Friday or Monday? What day goes off? Friday. Okay.
Which I'm not really counting this as I'm just hanging out here.
Thanks.
But no, I think it's been over a year of that, and I gotta say, it makes such a difference. I feel like, I've had my share of like burnout and all those negative symptoms, and what was once a person where I could work like 80 hours a day or like code nonstop, I'm not that guy anymore, like at all. So maybe I will be one day, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
So
rest is essential. So yeah, so the 4-day work week.
That's your pick.
That's your pick. That's a pretty solid pick, I would say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good research behind the 4-day work week, so it's interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm more productive now, for the most part.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Carl, you want to go?
Yeah, so I got 2 picks of the week, 2 pick I, and I could do that because I'm the host. Yeah, so the first one is Pepperidge Farms, the brand. I don't know if they have that Canadian products like goldfish crackers. So my kids love them, especially the flavor blast ones because they're so salty, and I like them too. My wife likes them too. But they're like the big tubs of them, which is the only size you can get the flavor blast ones in, are like $10 at Kroger. You can get them a little cheaper other places, but like, dude, we go through the in like half a week. $10 is a lot of money. Well, apparently they have Pepperidge Farm outlet stores. Which I didn't know that was a thing. And there's one here in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm at. There's some scattered all across the nation. And they sell Pepperidge Farm products at a discount. And I think they're near expiration date, which is part of why they do it. But I got a whole thing of crackers for $7.50. I paid $2.50.
Oh my
god! I do not know what that is.
They produce snacks.
Nope.
Like it's just
You've probably seen a goldfish cracker. Google goldfish cracker. You'll see.
Wait, you don't know what a goldfish cracker is?
I know what a goldfish cracker is, but
okay, that's what they make them.
Yeah. They make cookies and bread and other things too. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
Carl is really into snacks. The only time his light up more than talking about Ruby is when he's talking about snacks.
And my family. And then too. Yeah. No. My final thing is, so I've got so many more meetings in my job recently. I get so antsy, and so I've been looking at under desk treadmills, and so I'm deep diving on those right now. I think I really want to get one, but it's so hard to decide whether to get like the cheapo Amazon special, which you just don't know, or the good stuff seems to be pretty pricey. So I'm a little torn.
I'm still trying to get a stand-up desk.
Are you?
Dude, I'm stuck in the Stone Age. I'm sitting down.
Yeah, me too. I'm still sitting down. I tried the stand-up desk. My feet hurt too much. But I think the standing desk and a treadmill.
Yeah,
there you go. That's the best of both.
Exactly.
I got a standing desk. I invested in a standing desk because I messed up my back really, really bad. And so that was one of the recommendations was to make sure I was alternating between sitting and standing more frequently. So the smart thing would have been just to like take walking breaks or whatever. But, I didn't want to leave the keyboard too much. And so I did the standing desk. What I did is I got just the frame, and then I went to Home Depot and then bought like a kitchen counter block and just threw it on top, like screwed it to it. Because a lot of them, like you buy them, you spend all this money on like the whole table, right? But they give you this flimsy like particle board top.
Yeah.
But if you want the legit one, it like triples in price. We'll give you a nice desktop slab, but only if you pay 3 times the amount. It's like that's ridiculous. So I have a pretty heavy duty one. Or whatever, but yeah, I just picked up a butcher block countertop slab kind of type thing.
Nice.
Deep on it. It works great.
Where did you get the frame? Like the
frame? There's all sorts of companies. The company that I use, I actually would not recommend because I had such a poor experience with ordering and customer support. I got an iMover, and so I just bought the frame. The frame and stuff works great. It's supposed to have a warranty, but because I had such a poor experience with ordering and support, I'm very worried if something happens that even if it has a warranty, that I'm just never going to be able to make good on it. So if the motor burns out or does something or whatever, I'll probably just get a new one and not go with that same brand because I had such a poor experience.
Got it.
But there's several of them that just sell the legs or the frame or whatever.
Yeah, I think IKEA has them now too.
I'll bet they do, man. IKEA has everything.
I gotta look into that.
Yeah, do it, man. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. It's fantastic. My pick of the week is going to be a website called Level Up Tutorials. So it ranges on a whole bunch of really nice, really high quality like video tutorials. It's from this guy named Scott Talinsky, and he started doing YouTube videos a long time ago. Built up then this whole thing. They've since been acquired. So like I actually used to pay for this as a service, but now it's like free. And so this is really great. This is one of the number one things I give to people who are like newer to web dev or just need a refresher on stuff. So for me, I was reminded about it because I'm moving a handful of custom bundler type stuff I've done for clients over to web components. And I was like, I haven't like built these from the ground up instead of just like modifying a handful of stuff in a while. And so I was like refreshing myself with, they've got a couple of videos on web components that I thought were really good. And so I was like, I need to call this out as a pick, because it's pretty good. I think they've got some stuff on Ruby even too, Carl. So
Yeah.
you could get in there and just critique how good or
Well, I
bad
was looking
it
at
is.
it, and I
But they
love
have
this thing
stuff on
already.
React, and I know
Yeah.
you've been hacking around with that with checkout extensions. So,
And the guys that started it are U of M alum and based in Ann
I
Arbor.
forgot
So,
he's from.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
like, dude,
he's.
this looks great. So, anyway,
I'll check that
cool.
out.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's a good one. You know, and now it's free. Like I was paying a couple $100 a month a year for his videos or whatever, and now it's free. So that's awesome.
$100 a month.
Damn.
Okay, crazy.
It was a cheap
Maybe they're making
subscription for all the range of stuff that they offered. Like, you know, if you
That's
just
true.
want to learn a little bit about GraphQL or a little bit about TypeScript or a little bit about Dino or something like that, like you could just watch like a couple of these videos or whatever. So it was really cool. It was really well done. The videos are really high quality. He does a really good job explaining stuff. They show errors. I love it when people show errors. Like, you know, when they're
Oh,
working through
yeah.
stuff in code and it's not just like a clean run the whole way through. You're like, that's not realistic. And then as soon as you hit
Yeah.
something, you're like, what in the world is
That's
that
right.
now? So I like them. All right.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up with that. For the one listener that's still with us, thank you for sticking around. Thomas, thank you so much for being on the show. It was great to talk to you and learn more about Brickspace Lab. We're excited to see Space coming out here soon. We'll have to launch into that and enjoy the ride. Anyway, yeah. So you guys have the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I've had fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas.
All right. Bye, guys.